Good evening. Welcome to the Beyond Access Series webinar. My name is Carolina Liriano. I am the Director of Bilingual Special Education Programs in the Office of Special Education. Tonight, we have collaborated with our partners in the Division of Multilingual Learners, Students in Temporary Housing, and Family and Community Empowerment for the presentation. We will be sharing information about bilingual education and special education, as well as offer resources that may be helpful for families who have recently arrived and enrolled in New York City Public Schools. Before we begin, just a few reminders. There will be no chat feature during tonight's presentation, but the Q&A question and answer feature will be enabled so you can ask questions during the presentation. I will try to answer any questions during the session to the best of my ability, but we will also set aside time at the end of the presentation to answer questions. As always, this session will be recorded and posted on our YouTube page the next day. So don't worry if you miss any content from this presentation, you'll be able to watch it on our YouTube page once it's posted. If you don't follow our YouTube page, please follow us as we have more special education content for you on there. Tomorrow, we will send a summary email of tonight's session with the link to the recording and the YouTube page. This is our agenda for tonight. First, we are going to start by reviewing the definitions of some terms that will be useful to better understand the content of this presentation. Then we'll dive into the different programs and services available to students in New York City Public Schools, specifically newcomer students. At the end, we'll have time for questions and answers. Let's start by defining some terms that you will hear throughout this presentation. Many of you may already be familiar with these terms, but I'd like to make sure that we have the same understanding of what they mean. Let's begin with multilingual learners and English learners. These are students who are developing proficiency in multiple languages. This includes students learning English as an additional language in school, and they are often referred to as English learners or English language learners. Bilingual education or bilingual program is one in which academic content is taught in two languages. For example, English and Spanish or English and Mandarin. A monolingual program is an educational setting that provides instruction in only one language, in this case, English. Home language is that which is spoken at home by the parents and extended family members. Often it is referred to as the first language or the native language. English as a new language provides instruction in English with supports in the student's home language so they can learn to read, write, and speak English. Students from many different language backgrounds are taught together, and English may be the only common language among them. The goal of the program is to provide instruction in English with supports in the student's home language until they become proficient in English. Special education includes services, programs, and specially designed instruction to meet the individual needs of a student with a disability. Students with disabilities who require special education services have individualized education programs or IEPs. The IEP is created by a team that includes you, the parent. It will contain information about your child's interests, strengths, needs, and goals. It is a map that lays out the special education instruction supports and services your child needs to make progress and succeed in school. Students in temporary housing are those who reside in the following situations. They might be doubled up with friends or relatives because they cannot find or afford housing. They may also be in a shelter or in a transitional shelter. These students can also live in a hotel or motel, a car, bus, or train, or they might reside in a park or public place or an abandoned building. Now I will provide a description of bilingual education. Let's start with this image, which can be found in one of our schools. It says, to have another language is to possess a second soul. We are surrounded by language during nearly every waking moment of our lives. We use language to communicate our thoughts and feelings, to connect with others and identify with our culture, and to understand the world around us. For many people, this rich linguistic environment involves not just one language, but two or more. In fact, the majority of the world's population is bilingual or multilingual. Multilingualism is something we value in New York City public schools, and we strive to create optimal learning environments for our students who speak other languages. So who are our English language learners? As the name suggests, they are students who are learning English, but more officially, these are students who are entitled to receive English language learner supports per state and federal law. In order to be formally identified and considered an English language learner, and therefore legally entitled to these supports, a student must come from a home where a language other than English is spoken, and they must score below the New York State designated level of proficiency on the New York State Identification Test for English, which is the NICETEL. It is also important to know that English language learners are a part of a larger umbrella of multilingual learners. New York City is a historic and iconic gateway of immigration to the United States. Our city's powerhouse economic engine is driven by our wealth of diversity. We have nearly 1 million students in New York City, of which almost 16% are students that are English learners. We have a wealth of languages spoken in our communities and a wide variety of countries that families come to us from. Our English learners in our schools speak over 146 different languages at home. Spanish is by far the most represented language, followed by Chinese, Bengali, Arabic, and Russian. We offer bilingual education programs in dual language and transitional bilingual education models in 12 different languages. Over 400 of those programs are in Spanish to serve the majority of our families and students who bring a home language of Spanish. We know from over 30 years of research that English only and transitional bilingual education programs only close about half of the achievement gap between English language learners and native English speakers. However, high quality long-term bilingual education programs close all of the gaps after 5 to 6 years of schooling through the student's first and second languages. There is an established research base that shows us that emergent bilinguals in bilingual education programs typically outperform, so they do better than their peers in English-only programming and are more likely to succeed academically. These are the programs that we offer to support our English language learners in New York City public schools. So we have English as a new language, which provides instruction in English with support in the student's home language so that they can learn to read, write, and speak in English. Students in this program can come from many different language backgrounds, and English may be the only common language among them. Dual language bilingual education is where students are taught in two languages, English and their home language, such as Spanish, Chinese, or French, among others. The goal of this program is for students to be able to read, write, and speak in both English and their home language. In dual language classes, the home language and English are used equally. Transitional bilingual education programs provide reading, writing, and other classes in English and in your child's home language. And then as the student's English improves, time spent learning in English increases and time spent learning in the home language decreases, so that once your child is no longer identified as an English language learner, they will exit the program. It's important to note that in dual language bilingual education and transitional bilingual education, English as a new language, or ENL, is also offered as an additional support. These are your rights as a family, as a parent of a multilingual or English language learner. You have the right to choose which program you want for your child. Once you select the right program for your child, that child must be placed in the program of your choice within 10 days of enrollment in New York City Public Schools. If your selected program is not available at your child's current school, the school will offer you the following two options. Option number one, you may keep your child enrolled at the current school in a different English language learner program. If you choose this option, the school will immediately place your child in that program. Your second option is to transfer your child to a school that offers the program you're interested in. Your current school will work on your child's transfer. In the meantime, your child will temporarily be placed in an English language learner program at the current school until the transfer is complete. Your child's school will hold parent-teacher conferences and annual L-parent meetings to let you know how your child is performing in school. In addition, each spring, your child will take the New York State English as a Second Language Achievement Test, often referred to as the NICESLAT. This test measures your child's progress in learning English. It is administered to all English language learners enrolled in grades K through 12 in New York State schools. The results of this test allow students, teachers, and parents to understand each student's strengths and areas that need improvement, such as speaking, reading, and writing. The results of this test are also used to determine if your child will continue to be identified as an English language learner in the next school year. Now that we've learned about bilingual general education programs, let's review what special education is and how it can support students with disabilities. If you think your child may need special education services, keep in mind that children learn and develop at different speeds and in different ways. Children who learn differently may not necessarily have a disability. And finally, children should not be referred for special education services because of limited English proficiency. If English is not your child's first language, your child may be able to get support through an English as a new language or bilingual program, or in the case of deaf or hard of hearing children, access to a sign language interpreter in their classroom. Your child may be eligible for special education services if they show delays in the following areas: thinking and learning, understanding and using language, their home language, self-help skills like toileting, eating, and dressing, behavior, for example, getting along with others or expressing their feelings, and finally in physical ability like vision needs or hearing or movement. If interventions have been provided and your child still needs more support, you or the Department of Education can make a referral for an evaluation for special education. I'd like to note here that if you believe your child requires special education services, it's helpful to ask the right questions. Here are some questions you might want to ask your child's teacher. What are my child's strengths and challenges in the classroom? How do you support my child when they need help? Do you have examples of my child's work that we can look at together? Is my child learning and developing at a rate that is expected for their age? How does my child get along with other students in the classroom? Are there programs in the community that might help my child? What are some learning activities I can do at home or in the neighborhood? What are some questions I can ask my child when we read together? And finally, how can I help my child if they are struggling with homework? The steps of the special education process can be found in more detail in our special education family guide for families. Here is a snapshot of the process, and I'll be providing a brief description for each step. So first, we have step number 1, which is the initial referral or the request for referral. This first step is determining if your child has a disability and requires special education services. You or a school official may start the process with an initial referral, or another individual may make a request for referral, like a doctor. Step 2 is the evaluation. Once you provide consent for the evaluation, your child will be evaluated to determine their developmental history and behavior, what they know and how they learn, and their skills, abilities, and areas of need. The Department of Education will conduct assessments in all areas related to the suspected disability. If your child's home language is not English, the evaluation can be conducted bilingually. That means in both the home language, the language you speak at home, and English. The third step of the special education process is the IEP meeting. After the evaluation is complete, you will attend this meeting to discuss the assessments and determine if your child is eligible for special education services. If your child is eligible, the IEP team, of which you are an important member, will create what is called an individualized education program. Remember, this is one of the terms we covered at the beginning. This is the IEP. Step 4 is arranging special education services. After the initial IEP is created, this is the document that drives the special education services that will be recommended. The Department of Education will ask for your written consent to provide these special education services. After receiving your consent, the Department of Education will arrange the programs and services listed on your child's IEP. Finally, there is an annual review or reevaluation. Your child's IEP team will meet at least once each year to review your child's progress. This is called an annual review. A reevaluation must be completed once every 3 years unless you and the DOE agree in writing that it is not necessary. This is called a mandated 3-year reevaluation. Now that we have an understanding of the special education process, let's review the supports that can be offered in bilingual special education programs. Multilingual learners and English learners with disabilities recommended for bilingual special education have very unique learning needs that are stemming from or a direct result of their disability, which is impacting or affecting the way in which they are learning the English language. Bilingual special education programs allow the teachers to meet the needs of students by using the home language as a tool, an instructional tool in a special education program. These teachers have specific skills and expertise working with English language learners with disabilities. The IEP team may determine through bilingual assessments that a language of service other than English is required. For example, Spanish or Mandarin or Russian. If the education program or IEP determines this, the student would be eligible for placement in a bilingual special education program. This is a specialized program that does not exist in all schools. The student's current school may not offer bilingual instruction in a special education program. Therefore, the student will need to relocate to access this program. If a transfer to another school is necessary, the student may have access to transportation. In the next few minutes, I will go into more detail about the different models of bilingual special education programs, which are essentially a combination of a special education program and a bilingual program. These programs include integrated co-teaching classes or special education classes, and they may follow either the transitional bilingual education program model or the dual language program model. Let's define each of these components. Integrated co-teaching, or ICT classrooms, include both students with and without IEPs. Two teachers lead an ICT classroom, a general education teacher and a special education teacher. In a bilingual ICT program, both teachers can support the students in their home language and English. The teachers work together and collaborate to adapt and modify the instruction to ensure that the entire class has access to the general education curriculum. Special classes serve only students with IEPs. Special classes serve children whose needs cannot be met within the general education classroom, even if special education services are provided. In a bilingual special class, the teacher can support the students in their home language and English. Some, but not all, special classes may have a classroom paraprofessional. This additional adult in the classroom also speaks the home language of the students in a bilingual special class. Bilingual special education is the same across all districts, including District 75. Class sizes and ratios, meaning the number of teachers to students, will vary depending on the program that is recommended. So you can have a classroom of 12 students with one teacher, or 15 students with one teacher, or 6 students and one teacher and one paraprofessional in District 75. We have already covered the components of bilingual education, but please allow me to just briefly review again. In dual language programs, students are taught in 2 languages, English and their home language, such as Spanish or Mandarin. The goal of this program is for the students to be able to read, write, and speak in both English and their home language. In dual language classes, the home language and English are used equally. So the goal of dual language programs is bilingualism and biliteracy. Transitional bilingual education programs provide classes in English and in your child's home language. As the student's English improves, time spent learning in English increases and the time spent learning in the home language decreases. And so once the student is no longer identified as an English learner, the student will exit the program. Let's review some of the instructional practices in bilingual special education programs, or BSE programs. In bilingual special education classrooms, bilingual teachers who speak the same language as the students are available throughout the day to provide support in the home language and English. Teachers and classroom paraprofessionals work side by side to target the specific needs related to the student's language and disability. Students in a bilingual special education program receive instruction in their home language in subject areas such as science, math, and social studies. Students in bilingual programs also receive the support of home language arts instruction, for example, reading, writing, spelling, phonics, vocabulary, literature, and grammar in the student's home language. Classroom environments are welcoming of students who are learning a new language with plenty of visuals and bilingual classroom materials. Classroom objects and stations are labeled to allow English learners to better understand their surroundings and access academic content. These are some examples of visuals that may be present in a bilingual special education classroom. Pictured here are anchor charts with vocabulary words that are used depending on the lesson. Anchor charts can be displayed as reminders of prior learning and built upon over multiple lessons. To the right, you'll see a list of what we refer to as cognates in English and in Spanish. When you're learning a new language, a cognate is an easy word to remember because it looks and means the same thing as a word you already know. For example, animal in English and animal in Spanish have the same spelling. This is an additional example of some resources or visuals that can be found in a bilingual classroom environment. Now we're going to review the considerations in the bilingual evaluation process. When determining language of instruction and services for multilingual learners, the IEP team must consider several factors. So an individualized evaluation in English and the student's home language is necessary in order to make this determination. We also need to review the family's home language and student's use of his or her home language and English. It's important to have an understanding of the student's educational history, including whether the student is currently receiving bilingual services and the number of years the student has received these services. It's important to understand or have teachers' observations of the student's work, not just in English, but in the student's home language. Informal student assessments, including language sample interviews in both the home language and English, are also very helpful. And finally, the concerns and preferences of you, the family, the parents, are also a very important factor to take into consideration during this process. This is not a complete list of factors to be considered when recommending bilingual special education. Every student will have their own unique experience, which impacts the need for bilingual services. Based on this review of factors with a licensed bilingual professional at the IEP meeting, the IEP team will reach one of two decisions. Bilingual instructional services are not required, and the student can be successful in a monolingual classroom environment with English as a new language as a support. Or bilingual instructional services are required and the student does, need or benefit from that bilingual special education teacher in order to make gains in the classroom. If bilingual instructional services are required, the IEP team will explain to you, the family, the different program models available to English learners with IEPs. I want you to remember, bilingual special education programs are a specialized program. They do not exist in every district school, and your child may need to transfer to another school in order to receive this service. However, the student will have access to transportation. During the IEP meeting, the school-based team, such as the psychologist and social worker, will discuss the bilingual special education recommendation with you, whether it is available at your current school, and they may discuss possible school locations that offer the program. We encourage you to ask questions about the recommendation and express your feelings about a transfer to another school to receive the services. The IEP team will be able to share the importance of the services and the reasons why bilingual instruction has been determined as the appropriate recommendation for your child. You will have an opportunity to visit the school with a bilingual special education program prior to accepting the offer that we make. However, if you decline the bilingual special education program school offer for whatever reason, the IEP team may discuss with you other service options to support your child's learning needs, both language support and special education supports and services. Now let's transition to another very important point. So once a student has received a bilingual special education recommendation on the IEP, what happens? Does the student remain in bilingual education forever? The short answer to that question is no. IEP teams, which include you, should review the language of instruction for students recommended for bilingual special education every school year, such as during the annual review or reevaluation. As your child develops language skills in English, the IEP team will assess whether your child continues to need a bilingual special education program recommendation or whether they can transition to a monolingual program. The final part of this presentation on the bilingual special education programs will cover the inquiry process once a student receives a bilingual special education recommendation on their IEP. If an ICT or special class program is recommended with a language of instruction other than English, then your child is eligible for placement in a bilingual special education program. After the IEP has been finalized with bilingual ICT or bilingual special class, the psychologist or another school staff member will contact the Central Bilingual Special Education Programs team to identify what schools can be offered to the family or to the student that has this recommendation. You or your child's school may contact the Central Bilingual Special Education team or District 75 at any time during the year to submit an inquiry about bilingual special education placements or ask a question by emailing either bscprograms@schools.nyc.gov or d75info@schools.nyc.gov. Don't worry if you don't have time or are unable to write this down right now. Keep in mind we will be sharing with you this PowerPoint, so you will be able to have access to this text for later use. If there is a bilingual special education program that is at a reasonable distance from your home and the school has an available seat, you will receive what's called a school location letter. The school location letter provides the school's name, location, and contact information. For bilingual special education programs in districts 1 through 32, a bilingual special education program may be in a school other than your local district school. If the school is not near your home, your child may receive transportation. For bilingual special education programs in District 75, the BSE program may also be in a school other than your child's current school, and your child will be eligible for transportation as well. If a bilingual special education program is not available for your child will be supported by a bilingual paraprofessional in a monolingual, meaning English, ICT or integrated co-teaching, or a special class until a bilingual special education program becomes available. Now, we have shared the different ways in which we can support your child through language, whether in a general education or special education program. Now we're going to change gears a little bit here to provide a brief description of the supports that we can offer to students in temporary housing. Under the McKinney-Vento Act and Chancellor's Regulation A780, a student in temporary housing has the right to a free public education. They have the right to stay in their current school or choose to attend a zone school. They cannot be denied enrollment, immediate enrollment because of their temporary housing status, or if they lack enrollment documentation. They have the right to transportation services to and from school. And they continue to receive special education services regardless of the school transfer, as well as services that are comparable to those offered to other students. We encourage you to click on this link when you receive the presentation to complete the housing questionnaire and send it to your school to determine if your student is eligible to receive any of the supports listed above. Here are some additional resources and events. We invite you to participate in upcoming family and community events that we have coming up. We have a family and community resource fair, which will be held on Saturday, June 3rd at Murray Bertram High School. There will be a registration link here for you to sign up for that. There's also a family engagement day for families in temporary housing, and this will be on Saturday, June 10th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Lehman College. Again, the registration link for this event is here once you receive this document. And finally, we have a District 24 parent and community event, which will be on Saturday, June 3rd. This will be at George Suffert Brancheld Forest Park. I'm sure I mispronounced that. District 24 represents schools serving students in the following communities. Ridgewood, Maspeth, Glendale, Middle Village, Elmhurst, Corona, Woodside, Long Island City, and Sunnyside. We'll also share the flyers for these events with you when we share the documents for today's presentation. Some additional resources here for you to review. We have the Summer Rising program. This is a partnership between New York City Public Schools and the Department of Youth and Community Development. Summer Rising is free and available to all New York City students in grades K through 8, pending seat availability. For the deadline for this program has already passed. However, you can continue to refer to this website, which will have information on the availability of seats in the program. And then here you have information on summer meals. Breakfast and lunch will continue beyond the instructional school year. Our summer meals program is available throughout New York City to students ages 18 and under. It's designated public schools, community pool centers, parks, and food trucks will be open for service. No registration, documentation, or ID is necessary to receive a free breakfast or lunch meal. And additional information will be available as we approach the start date. So please go on this page to bookmark it for future reference. Here are some email addresses and phone numbers for you to contact in case you have any questions about any of the information we have shared with you today. I hope that you all learned a lot from tonight's presentation. And we would like to take the remainder of the session to address any questions regarding all of the information that we have shared. Thank you so much for your attention.